Today, we're going to be talking about the closure of these major craft retailers or the liquidation of Simplicity Pattern Group. So, we're just going to give our thoughts on why this is happening and maybe there's some opportunities for smaller brands. Why do you think they closed? Naima, you can take it away.
I think a lot of it was about money. If you really get into the weeds of it and look at, how Joann was doing before, they weren't struggling and they weren't failing. So that just makes you think that they did it for the money. And I also could go nerd deeper, but that's another whole episode where I was watching a video of a woman who kind of broke it down, like how these liquidation companies work. How do I feel about it? I feel like it's going to be a major loss for the creative community. Let's be realistic. Joann's had turned into more of a craft store than a fabric store anyway. Nobody on earth needs that much fleece. And if you're a fleece lover, I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend, but my goodness, can we get some silk? It's a loss. And at first I was like, well, there's other places, but you all live in the fashionable capital of the United States. I live in a major metropolitan city, so we have other places and we have other stores. But when I think about these sewists and creators and designers who are in places where it's not as readily available, I feel like it's a disservice to them.
So, Tish, what do you think happened?
I definitely think the same thing. It was really about money. Plus, I mean, I think they've gotten away from how they started. They really became more about crafts. But when it came to being a sewist and patterns and actual fabric, I would go in there and there may be a handful of things that I really wanted, but most times I only went to get muslin because they didn't have a great selection anymore of fabrics. Instead, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to take the time and I'm going to order from someplace else. Get swatches from someplace else. We won't say those stores because, hey, but with that, I definitely think that some of the smaller communities, they're really going to miss it because where are they going to go? Now they have to buy online.
As you say that, it's so funny because I have gotten back into making more clothes and making things for myself. As I teach more, I'm making more. And everybody knows I'm a fabric hoarder. It's not a secret. And as I'm pulling some of these textiles out, I'm like, oh my God, I remember this Joann. You could find some gems in there, but it was a scavenger hunt in the later days. You had to swim through a mountain of fleas, things that nobody needed, for apparel makers and garment makers. It was just a whole bunch of stuff that was a turnoff because you have to practically go into the back of the store for what you need. And, by the time you weed through all of it, you're over it.
Well, I mean, I piggyback off of what you guys just said. It's a loss to the crafting creative community, definitely. But what I think happened is they really didn't keep up with the times. There was a lot of, just speaking as a pattern maker designer, they didn't offer PDF patterns. They just got into like the ditto projector type thing. So they really weren't keeping up with what the home sewing industry was doing. People moved elsewhere. They moved to indie pattern makers, to wherever, stuff was cheaper because it wasn't necessarily the cheapest thing. It's just, I think what happened is they were stuck in their ways. They got too big and they did not keep up with the times of what people were asking for. And then, of course, that was money. That cost them money and they weren't making, they had to answer to their shareholders or whoever. And hence is why they closed. That said, we heard that the Simplicity Group, which has Vogue, Butterick, McCall's, all of those patterns, the big four, they liquidated based on Joann's closure. So why do you think that is? And what effect do you think that's going to have on the sewing community?
I'm still stumped by that one. It had gotten to the point where most people were turning to the Simplicity Group to buy their patterns because you couldn't find anything in Joann's even when it was doing well. I'll go back to what you said. You can also buy PDF patterns on simplicity.com and don't have to worry about, going to the store or whatever. I'm stumped on why. I think with the introduction of the Know Me brand, where they take these independent designers, they have the collaboration with Mimi G and her husband. And they were doing great things. They had this whole section where they are promoting these independent pattern designers, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, we're done. I really don't think their base was Joann, if I'm being honest. That one I will say is probably more about the money, but that one left me a little bit stumped.
I think it's unfortunately for simplicity, it's like the perfect storm because here Joanne's closes, and then the printer that's the person, the manufacturer that makes the printer that actually prints the tissue paper and prints the patterns, they also went out of business. So it's they're losing the person that can actually print the patterns. They're also losing Joanne's, and they're in the middle. I just think it was unfortunately the perfect storm. Instead of them trying to take the time to pivot and to do more digital and PDFs, like I really think they really should have invested in.
I think I first read the article on Craft Industry Alliance. I think they kind of did all of the research on it, and people just did their own research from there. The printer that does the tissue paper print is based in the US, and I went to their website. They still have a website, so I don't know if they're out of business or not. But I know that a lot of independent designers got their patterns printed through this company. I'm assuming that they're still doing it. I'm not sure. And I know that was a big part of their business for tissue paper. So maybe they won't do that anymore. Maybe that part of the business is closing. But as far as I see, the business is still viable because they do other packaging and stuff like that. I think like seasoned sewists will be fine. And people that are just getting into it, I think it's going to give them the most disservice because it's like a central place for them to go to get patterns. So I think it's going to be the most detrimental to the new sewers. As far as I know, I saw I think it was an IG post. Mimi G said something that they just told them that they were liquidating the patterns. They didn't close the companies. That's the same thing they told Joann employees in the beginning. So I think this is just the first step. I don't think we have all the information yet.
I also think it may be a prime time for independent designers and pattern makers to begin to start making their clothing and then turning it into a PDF pattern, because I mean it's definitely possible, and then having the all of the formats so that somebody can print it out.
I mean, honestly, as an independent pattern designer, I'm looking at it as an opportunity because they were so big and had so much. If that is gone, people are still going to sell, but they're going to start looking elsewhere. So if you are an independent pattern designer or you want to get into it, I think now is the prime opportunity to do so because if they are going away, there's going to be a void in the market. So this is where you take advantage and try to promote yourself, and of course that's what I'm going to try to do. You know what I'm saying? One thing that I would say about the big four, they had a certain size model in mind. That wasn't us. It wasn't me. I can speak for myself. It was not me. It's like every pattern that you got, you had to adjust accordingly. But I knew that, because like I've been sewing for years, so I knew what I had to adjust on each pattern. You had to, make the torso shorter. You had to make the back longer, just stuff that is going to work for your body. But I think that was the disconnect. I think I bought like 1 or 2 Nomi patterns, but it's still the same specs. It's not, they didn't change the fit of anything.
I was just about to say that even with the Nomi patterns, I mean, Nomi patterns go up to what, 26, 30, whatever size they go up to, but I still find myself having to adjust the bottom, adjust the hip, you know. You know what a great market. I'm gonna give you a pitch right now. Make stuff for petite women, petite curvy women. We need stuff for short girls with big assets. Before we started recording, I was working on stuff for my class and I was cutting out the trouser, and I got to take like 4 inches off the trouser, which means I got to bring everything up. And then it's like, these are things I have to teach because my students they are not standard size because they're human beings and they're real people. So untapped market.
It's not necessarily tall women. It's just like the average because everybody's not 5'6". Wasn't it, or 5'8"?
A regular 6 on there was really like a 0.
It wasn't the average U.S. woman. I mean, the average U.S. woman is a size 12. Average size is 5'4", not 5'6", 5'8". Why are you making? It didn't mesh. So in my sizing, that I do a sample size in a size 12, 14, and the height is 5'4". So if you're taller than 5'4", you have to add, and if you're shorter, you have to detract. But it's still the average. I mean, most people are within the 5'4", 5'5" height range. They catered to a certain demographic, and I think Joann's had a lot to do with the liquidation because they had a lot of inventory. I also read they said something about the tariffs, which doesn't really make sense because the printing was done in the U.S. So I was like, that's like an excuse, you know, and that has a lot to do with money, like Naima said. So it had to be some other factors in it that caused them to do the liquidation.
When you think about it too, nobody is going on simplicity for trim. You know, it's a rare thing. Nobody's going to buy their trims and notions and stuff. Like that's not the first thing you think of. So if the pattern making is your business and you're doing it well and you're the only company, because remember when we first started sewing, they were all individual companies. I have some vintage patterns and there was like one size per pattern. Like the things that they do now, we didn't have.
They were simplicity was its own thing, and then I think McCall's and Butterick came together, and Vogue was still its own thing. Now all of them are the same thing.
If more independent designers and pattern makers come forward with more of the lines and more variety in fitting, it may actually help some of the individual the new sewers because they won't have to go through the headache of don't look at the 6, look at the measurements, and it's like no, this is going to fit you whatever size. Like this is going to also fit the curvy. This is going to fit the petite. But also, it will help to branch out so they can see other independent designers, but also pique their interest into getting into learning pattern making because we all also teach that and digital pattern making. So it may actually help them to be a little bit more creative and take control over their clothing.
Take this as your opportunity. If you want to get into pattern making, start learning now. It's going to be a market for it if this comes to fruition and they actually liquidate and close.
On that note, I am Zahia from Cover Me Chic, along with
Naima from Fearless Threads.
And Letitia of Keeping You in Stitches.
I'm
Bye.